What's old is new again. They're all still very old, though, so let's just not forget that very important detail. Apparently, there is a bipartisan, and I like the fact that the Epoch Times at least put it in quotation marks because it's the exact same cast of characters, right? A bunch of far-left Democrat senators, a couple of centrists who like the spotlight for the time being, and then the exact same cast of idiots over and over again from the Republican side that are supposed to represent the intentions of the GOP, even though they're hand-selected by Joe Biden. And that's the same tired old corp that keep running through the White House in order to, I don't know, negotiate the best interest of both sides. I really don't get it, because you can see them in the picture there. You got Bill Cassidy over Joe Biden's shoulder. Murkowski's supposed to be in that picture. You got Mitt Romney just about, I don't know, crying because this is so significant over there on the far right, which is about the only time anybody has ever said that about anything. Joe Manchin's in the back, another one of these empty heads that just like the spotlight for the time being, and Sinema in all red, which is funny because, right, they're bipartisan. That means I can wear my red out whenever I want. It doesn't much matter. But yeah, no, they're going to be spending $550 billion of taxpayer money in order to fund, I don't know, the same worthless corporations and the same stupid construction companies that continue to build the same shitty roads over and over and over again, or slightly renovate a couple of federal buildings. Like, there's nothing of substance to really be gained from this, but at least it is going to infrastructure, even though I hate the fact that they're spending money on this. And I don't know how deep you guys go into the rabbit hole of like libertarianism and the different ANCAP arguments that are out there. Most of them kind of center around roads, and it finally just hit me, okay? Because one of the big hurdles that people have to overcome when they engage with another side, the libertarian ANCAP side, it's like, well, who would look after the roads? Who would clean the roads? And then, I don't know who I was listening to, and I don't know when this came to me, but then I've had this big problem with the construction companies, and around Grand Prairie, it's very, very hilarious, the type of construction companies. There's literally 3 in town, okay? And they always get the same contracts, and the same roads have to get repaired and they have to get replaced about every 2 to 3 years. I think it's for the 3rd year in a row. It's definitely the 2nd year in a row. 100th Street has been closed down, or is that, no, that's 100th Ave, sorry. It's closed down, and that's the main vein through the entire fucking city, so you have to take detours, or you have to hop on the bypass. And if you hop on the bypass, right now they're doing some more construction in the same place that they were doing it within the last 5 years. So why do we keep funding these people? Because they do such a stellar job? No, it's because they're all in bed with the government who gives them the fucking money. And that's where I've finally had that come to Jesus moment where it's like, oh, okay, government-controlled roads are kind of fucking retarded, but this is the system that we live in, and you just gotta roll with the punches, because nobody's gonna fucking shift along to that fringe line of thinking, which I'm starting to appreciate more and more for very practical reasons, but the people in charge aren't going to be giving up the keys to the castle anytime soon. That's why they work on these bipartisan deals such as this. The White House and several senators, right, announced Wednesday that they've reached a deal that would provide $550 billion new federal investment to U.S. infrastructure, coming after weeks of talks. What's in there? Good question. In a statement released by the Biden administration, the White House, and bipartisan groups, sure, of senators announced an agreement on the details of a once-in-a-generation investment. Oh, okay, until the next infrastructure bill needs to show up, and then it'll be a whole hell of a lot more. Because when we were first discussing this, yeah, you might be able to see it just kind of a little bit over there in the corner. Senate Republicans vote to block debate on $1.2 trillion infrastructure deal. This was the deal that we were talking about beforehand. And then once this bipartisan commission got together in the Oval Office, in the White House, wherever they were, to make these grand discussions on how they're going to be spending your money, they were talking about this little portion, because this was the only portion that was in that much larger $1.2, $1.9 trillion infrastructure bill that was actually going towards infrastructure. Okay, you probably remember the meme, infrastructure is healthcare, infrastructure is whatever nebulous term you want to make it. Thank you, Krysten Gillibrand. According to the statement, the deal will create good paying union jobs. Ugh. Just being on the government tit. Just following whatever the government wants you to do. We're going to be talking about the coof in the second segment, but they just want you on the tit so they can boss you around at all times and give you those golden handcuffs to make sure that you are complying at all times. With the president's Build Back Better agenda, these investments will add, on average, around 2 million jobs per year. Really? Really? You think so? Because the last time I was sold that bill of goods, unemployment numbers continue to skyrocket. That wasn't that long ago when you had that massive increase, and month over month, so far, the numbers have been trending a lot different than the way that you're projecting them to go. So I don't know what to believe. Biden's truth, his truth, or my own lying eyes. I don't know. Back to this. While accelerating America's path to full employment, sure, everybody, just get put on the fucking government dime. Definitely not a socialist plan at all whatsoever. No. And increasing labor force participation. Just like they're encouraging people to get the jab. I'll save all my good stuff for then. Lead GOP negotiator, my mistake, Rob Portman, another person who voted to impeach or go ahead with the impeachment trial. He's an asshole. Rob Portman told reporters that we now have an agreement on the major issues, adding that lawmakers are prepared to move forward with the deal. Portman also said the deal is paid for, although he didn't elaborate. Portman's counterpart, Krysten Sinema, put down some of her box wine to echo the comments of the reporters on Capitol Hill and said the group hopes to move quickly on the measure. We do not expect to move forward this evening. And did you see that protest? That was totally organic and definitely not staged in order to give me some sympathy points outside of my office in Arizona, which I was nowhere near. We are excited to have a deal, Sinema said. We got most of the text done, so we'll be releasing it, and then we'll update you on it as we get those last pieces finalized. That's the crux of this. Okay, they've negotiated how much money they're going to spend on it. They just don't know what they're going to be spending it on. Don't you think that's a little bit important? Don't you think you want to figure out exactly what you want to do? Maybe you have a number in mind, okay? Maybe it is $500 billion. Wow, $500 billion, and that's what you're aiming for. And it's like, okay, you want to put together everything that you guys want to work on. Okay, and then you realize, and then you start to total up, okay, how much money is that? Oh, okay, it's $750 billion. Oof. And then you just start to trim that back in order to fit your budget. But no, when you can just make the money machine go brrr, it doesn't really much matter what you have. You can just make it up on the fly. So this was supposed to be just a portion of it, okay? And like I said, they don't even know what the completed bill is going to look like. They just know it's just going to be $550 billion. So it goes to show you that people reporting on the news actually give a shit a lot more about the substance than the people creating the news, which is frightening and should be a warning sign that the government in control right now has definitely gone off the rails. I can't speak to any other governments at the time, but that seems to be the modus operandi of the Biden administration. God, it's so weird because Kamala Harris has been very quiet lately. Very, very quiet. Eerily quiet lately. Just food for thought. Nothing really to add to that. She just hasn't been making any headlines lately. Not like her. But to bring it back to the cool stepmom, she's going to vote no on Democrats' $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. That is supposed to be where the other beef that's going to be, or not beef, pork. That's the political term. All the unnecessary spending from the first proposed infrastructure bill, that's where this was all going to end up, sorry. So being that good centrist, being that good moderate, knowing that she still has to seek re-election in 2024. She's just going to lay the groundwork that I'm a moderate, even though I'm still a Democrat at heart. You just wouldn't know it from any of my campaign material because the words Democrat or the colors blue are nowhere near your banner, but everybody's going to be hip to what you're all about the next time around. They should be the position being held by Mark Kelly right now because he has to run again for re-election in 2022. And it looks pretty dire of a situation at the time being because nobody's announced quite yet for the primaries on the Republican side. But whole Chairman Mark there, it's going to be an uphill battle for him because he went against that charisma vacuum, Martha McSally, who, I'm sorry if I talked any of you guys into thinking that she was a stand-up individual because she folded like a deck of cards as soon as all the ballots were first tallied in Arizona, and Fox News called it on the night and then just slithered off into the darkness. She was a reformed McCainite, but it looks like that sellout streak was very much active. Anyways, yeah. Back to the first person that McSally failed to defeat in an election. Sinema says she's going to vote no on this $3.5 trillion. Key Democrat, sure, self-created key Democrat, said Wednesday she will not support a proposed $3.5 trillion spending plan that her party had hoped to ram through the Senate without support from Republicans. Yeah, they were going to use a reconciliation tactic where you have the votes, you don't have to debate on it. All you need to do is just hold a practically formal vote and then just boom, it's off to the races. But no, that ain't going to happen this time around. Or at least you're going to have the debate side of this, and she might just flip-flop, but then eventually fall to party lines. Just take a look at all of the votes that have gone through the Senate recently and realize that she has voted with the Democrats every time that it has mattered. The only one who's actually done something is Joe Manchin. But then he also fell in line, I think, when it came to gun control. It was one of those big topics, but yeah, he eventually bent the knee because he just likes the spotlight. He doesn't like any of the responsibility of taking a stand. As most politicians, to be completely honest. That's just not a specific Joe Manchin, Krysten Sinema thing. Oh, but her statement read, I support many of the goals in this proposal to continue creating jobs, growing American competitiveness. That's not what the government does. All it does is restrict competitiveness, but okay. And expanding economic opportunities for Arizonans. I do not support a bill that costs $3.5 trillion. Most of your statement is very stupid and misinformed, but at the end, not supporting the $3.5 trillion, that's a good thing. It really is, because that is just an unfathomable amount of money. Like, I'd imagine if you had just printed out $100 bills, it could probably fill this entire room from toes to titties and still have excess cash to flow into the hallway. And considering where all that money would end up going is not exactly the best use of your funds. An announcement means Democrats will likely need to reduce the scope of the legislation to secure the support of Sinema and her fellow moderate. Again, people, just look at her history. She's a socialist. Joe Manchin's an idiot, but she has a past, a very easily accessible past. Just do your homework. She ain't no fucking moderate. Just look at her state voting record. With the Senate split 50-50, Democrats cannot afford to have a single member of their conference defect if they want to pass the so-called reconciliation bill with just 51 votes. The $3.5 trillion plan, backed by Socialist Senate Budget Committee Chairman Bernie Sanders. Why you would put a communist in control of the purse strings is beyond me, but hey, that's how Chuck Schumer wants to roll, but he has his own ideas on what should be inside the bill once they figure out what the fuck is going to be in it. Remember when Joe Biden was talking during the presidential debates in, September and October? He said that he didn't support the Green New Deal. He said that that was somebody else's idea. That was just all Bernie Sanders rhetoric. But then you went and you took a look at the manifesto that Joe Biden had on his campaign website, and it distinctively said the Green New Deal is an important framework for the types of policies we want to go ahead with. Yep, another lie. Thanks, Joe. Infrastructure package must contain Green New Deal-like policies, according to Chuck Schumer. Again, because they don't know what's in it. But we'll get to that shortly. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said Wednesday that any infrastructure package must contain large-scale environmental policies. You're talking about infrastructure, and you're worried about what you guys define as climate. Pick a description. Warming, global cooling, climate change, climate healing, climate your ass. Whatever. I will not pass an infrastructure package that does not reduce carbon pollution at a scale commensurate with the urgency of the climate crisis we face. Big words, Chuck. Yay. Good for you, buddy. What does any of that mean? Okay? Because just in case you didn't know, and this is just between you and me, carbon emissions and greenhouse gas emissions were steadily going lower under the Trump administration after he left the Paris Climate Accord than at any point under the Obama administration. That's just between you guys. We're friends here, right? We're united in taking on the climate crisis as we move forward. Again, it's just a crisis like what? The pandemic that's never going to end, like racism is a public health crisis, and climate is a crisis as well. You can keep calling that stuff what you can keep calling it, a crisis, a pandemic, an epidemic, whatever the fuck you want to call it. They just want to designate that stuff so then they can have unchecked, unfettered powers. You want to see that in action? Go up to Michigan. Take a look at what the governor's doing there. Anything that she wants gets declared an emergency, and then she has overarching powers until they get clawed away from her cold, dead hands. And it's not that she's dead. I mean, it's not that anybody's actually trying to kidnap her, except for some glowies. It's that I'm pretty sure she's a vampire. I'm just saying Joe Biden let slip that he thinks that some of his detractors think that he drinks blood, but no, that he's just describing some of his counterparts in big government. Are united in taking on the climate crisis? Sure you are, Chuck. Schumer's $1 trillion spending proposal stands alongside a Moody's report he released. It's weird, right? Because they keep saying that this is not a liberal think tank. This is not a liberal institution at all, but it always seems like a Moody's report that comes out to benefit Democrats, huh? When you look at the numbers, like I did way back in the past, when Joe Biden's tax policy first came out, and it was from Moody's, and the numbers just weren't adding up. And then Wharton Business School also took a look at it as well and said, the numbers just don't add up. But hey, if you pay a company enough to give you a report, they'll give you the report that you bought and paid for. I'm just saying. Schumer is pushing the same Moody's report, while the producer price index rose 7.3% in June from 12 months earlier. The largest demand since 12 months data was first introduced in 2010. In comparison to May, the index rose 1%. On average, during the pre-pandemic Trump administration, the index rose by about 0.2% per month. I'm not saying Biden's doing a shit job. Not because I don't believe it, it's just I don't want to repeat myself over and over again. But yeah, to just wrap this up, like I've been banging on, they don't know what's going to be a part of this $500 billion spending package. Republicans prepare to vote for infrastructure bill that does not yet exist. Interesting. Republicans remain poised to vote for a bipartisan infrastructure bill that does not yet exist. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer announced on the Senate floor Wednesday morning that senators involved in bipartisan infrastructure bill negotiations continue to make good progress, and that the chamber should be prepared to vote on the advancing bill as early as tonight. Okay, I will wait with bated breath. Nothing has really come out. Nothing's been made progress on, at least at time of recording, okay? At 6:30 local. So could that change by the middle of the night? That tends to be when Democrats like to do a lot of their bidding. So we could wake up to a massive increase to the debt load, but whatever. Senators involved in the bipartisan negotiations struck a tentative deal last month, but have yet to finalize the compromise. Despite Schumer's announcement, lawmakers involved in the negotiations have yet to draft the infrastructure bill. This means that Republican lawmakers could vote to advance legislation past the cloture without knowing exactly what they are voting on in advance. I think there's a lot of people that wouldn't want to be voting on that. Senators Ron Johnson, along with Senators Rick Scott, Marsha Blackburn, Mike Lee, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Mike Braun, Cynthia Loomis, and Bill Hagerty. I'm going to guess they probably aren't on the side of voting for something that isn't drafted up yet. This is pretty much the good Republican senators, just about gets all of them, have rallied against the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Wow, I'm shocked. Charging that the bill would only enable Democrats' leftist agenda. We've ran the numbers. We've seen all the pork that's included in that, from sending money overseas for gender studies programs. Literally, that's in there. It's going to Pakistan. Sending billions of dollars to Egypt. All for what? For infrastructure. Because anything you want to be infrastructure can be infrastructure. That's a part of the Build Back Better plan. With that said, I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.